Morning or good afternoon, everyone. This is Jeannie Borum speaking here from Signworld. Glad you guys could join us today. Hopefully you're having a fantastic Valentine's Day to start. For those of you who have never joined one of our public webinars, just a really quick overview of what to expect for our time together today. First off, we're going to give each of our owners who are participating as panelists an opportunity to give a little bit of background about themselves and their business. So you know a little bit more about them. And then the fun starts where we turn the floor over to our participants who are on the call today to be able to ask any question that you have about the business itself, the industry, or the Signworld model. We do ask when we call you out by name to please keep it to a single question. If time permits, we will go around and ask additional questions if again, if time permits. So with that said, let's first give you introductions to our owners on the call today. And let's start with Mr. Don Conklin, who attended Ash Wednesday service already, proudly and presenting his ashes on his forehead. Don, please give an introduction.
Don Conklin, my wife Teresa and I started this business 13 years ago here in Atlanta, Georgia. We started in 2,000 square feet. We're at 12,375 square feet. We started with 2 employees. We're up to 23 employees. And we are looking at doing about 6 million this year. And before this, we were both in telecom.
And your largest recent project you've done?
A company called Fenner Dunlop. We did building signs for them for about $75,000.
Okay, very good. All right, let's go to our next owners on our call today, Don and Faye. Who wants to do the introduction for you guys? You're on mute, Don. Hold on, you're still on mute, Don.
Okay.
There we go. Yes, we go.
Very good. All right. So Donna Faye Pearson, we live in south of San Diego in a little community called Chula Vista. And we've been in business, it'll be 5 years coming up this month or next month. March. Yeah. We have 2,000 square feet in our facility. We started with 2,000 feet. We have not grown with the exception of getting some storage space. And we have 4 employees plus 2, Faye and I, so we have 6. Our goal for this year is 1.1 million, and our largest 2 accounts, both one's a church, Skyline Church, it's about 80,000, and the other one's a church school, Mater Dei, and that's about 80,000 as well, 85,000. So, and prior to getting into the siding business, I was in training and development. I worked for corporate America, and I was on the road quite a bit. And
I was an interior designer working at a firm in Ohio before we moved here.
Wonderful. Is Mater Dei, is that the school that's up in the Orange County area, or is that down by you?
2.
There's several, but
Okay.
Orange County is Scott and Edith did some work.
I thought I'd known that they'd done projects for them too, so I was curious. Okay.
And I shared their projects with our Mater Dei, and they're looking to do the similar.
Wonderful.
So yeah.
Good. Awesome. All right, let's go to our next owner, Kelly. If you can go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Kelly. Kelly Hanaway, represent the Milwaukee sign company here, and that's kind of our territory from the lake all the way, kind of towards Madison and around. We've been in business we're coming up on 3 years in June. In our facility, we're at 3,250 square feet that we're outgrowing already. We just had a router dropped off yesterday, and now we are really out of space. We have 4 people here, and then we rely on a lot of vendor folks to help us. So it's larger than that as a network for sure. We hit 2023, we were at 1.25, and we're shooting for 1.5 million this year in 2024. Our biggest customer, it's one that kind of keeps giving back to us locally. It started, now it's a national account for us. Halo channel letters all over, and in some linen, superior linen companies. They do linens for hospitals and things like that. That one's probably over 200 and probably go to 250. It's a great account for us. Before I started doing this, Again, I mentioned we had 4 people, and I am blessed to be able to have my son work with me. So that's one of the reasons I really enjoyed doing this. I was in engineering way back when, and in corporate for 25 years before I started doing this. So that's kind of us.
That's awesome. What kind of router did you buy yesterday?
It's in industrial CNC. It's called. We had a really good deal on it. We couldn't pass it up, and now we're just literally out of space. We had to jam it in there, but we'll figure it out.
Sounds great. Thanks, Kelly.
Mhm.
Dan, are you covering for Jack today? Speaking of father-son.
I'm filling in for Jack, yes.
Very good. You want to give just a quick introduction?
Yeah, so I'm Dan Werner. I'm the VP of Operations for Signworld. My journey with the organization started back in 1995 when Jack and my mother started a Signworld location here in Southern California. They ran that business for 11 years, sold it in the end of 2006 before Jack and I joined the corporate team. But with our sign company, we started out in about 1,200 square feet of space, ended in about 5,000 square feet, at about 1.3 million in revenue with a staff of 11. So as I work through a lot of the answers or questions here today, there may be some that I jump back to the experience of running a sign company, but a lot of it really come in what we are teaching and training owners today and how they build their business.
Wonderful. Thank you, Dan. All right, let's turn the floor over to our participants who are on the call. Again, I'll call you out by name, and when I do, if you can just give one question at a time, that'd be fantastic. Chris Jackson, we'll start with you first. Please take yourself off of mute, tell the group where you're located, and go ahead with the question for them today.
Hi, yeah, thank you. I am located in the Chicagoland area, and I'd just be interested to learn a little bit more about your territories and how your territories have worked out with Signworld.
Great question. Those of you who are considering Signworld as a business, we treat territories very differently than franchise systems do, in the sense that as an owner, they're allowed to market and support customers geographically anywhere. I think you heard Don talk about having a national customer. I believe Kelly talked about having a national customer. So territories are quite different, but let's let the owners give their perspectives on their territory, what they view about them, how they consider them, etc. Don and Faye, let's start with you first.
Okay, so we're in Southern California. We are about 6 miles from the Tijuana border and 6 miles from the ocean. And as far as territories go, we have to go north a lot. And we have probably, at one point we had 280 other sign companies in San Diego County. I'd say probably 8 to 10 of those were Signworld. Occasionally we go up against another Signworld, but for the most part, the territory hasn't been a problem. And we've sold all over the United States. So we have the territory is irrelevant. As an example, I'm helping a sign company that's up north about 45 minutes take care of a permit issue in the same building we're working on a permit. And that's a Signworld company. We just help each other out. So we have no issues with the territory. It's wide open.
Very good. Kelly, how about you?
Real similar. I think there's 5 or 6 Signworld, guys in the Milwaukee area. It basically in the area, not exactly where I am in my territory, but yeah, we don't really run into each other at all. If anything, we collaborate with each other. I never see them, bidding against jobs for me. There's just a ton of business, and even it's littered with signoramas and fast signs and then the local shops too. And literally, we just really don't even consider it. It's a very healthy area. And we don't, and we also do a lot of collaboration with the Signworld guys across the country. I mean, that is, kind of as Don said, I mean, it's hard to permit. You get your stuff permitted in another area, you need to rely on folks, boots on the ground to get those done. And it's worked out very well for us.
Very good. Thank you, Kelly. Don?
We have 20 other Signworld owners in Atlanta, I think, something like that. I've trained most of them myself. They come and have their day of training with me. We collaborate. I would say 5% of my revenue is in my assigned zip codes. So most of my revenue is not in my assigned zip codes. The assigned zip codes are really a place for you to establish your business, not for where you can sell with your business. So
No, very good. Dan, your thoughts?
Yeah, from a territory perspective, really a lot of the basis for the territory is to give you as the business owner protection from oversaturation. If every owner has a protected buffer zone where you are the only owner that can locate within that buffer zone, ultimately every owner starts taking up, parts of the geography that limit where Signworld can place a new location. So it's giving you some protection to know that there's enough business density out there to support your startup. But as you've heard from these other owners, they're all growing their business outside of their area with their independent brand. And then they're leveraging other Signworld owners to effectively get the work done. So there's a ton of collaboration on the back end that gives you that room to scale your brand, but yet not harm somebody else's business in doing that. Because you're, again, collaborating on the back end, you're sort of in a way sharing in the revenue, sharing in the profitability. So there's a benefit to both sides of it.
Very good. Thank you, Dan. All right, let's go to our next participant. Greg, if you can take yourself off of mute, tell the group where you're located and go ahead with the question for today.
Hi, my name is Greg Rhodes. I'm based here in Savannah, Georgia, on the coast. I guess my question is, we all know that experience can be a great teacher. So based on not just things you've done right, but, based on your experience, not just now, but when you initially decided whether you wanted to even go into the business, what would be just a couple of lessons learned that if you look back, you wished you had known, either in terms of, when you first were jumping into the business and then you later discovered, or in terms of actually running the business from ramp up into, ongoing operation?
Yeah, great question. I think we have this one. This is one of a few that we always have, I feel like, on every webinar. Kelly, looking back, lessons learned. What were some of the key takeaways that you've learned in the business so far?
Yeah, and a lot of it, was kind of already what we kind of said already. Was really I wasn't confident enough to just reach out to other Signworld companies to just kind of introduce myself to them and try to collaborate with them on jobs, thinking, oh, they're going to take my job, they're going to do this. I would have done that a lot faster. I mean, I was doing it with local guys, but once I figured out, hey, this is really pretty easy to do, it just started going national with it, and just don't even question the job, just go at it. The other thing that we learned to do faster, and now we're better at, was we've got a very kind of a techie group of people here that would overanalyze quotes, trying to put systems and templates together that allow us to get to coding very quickly. So we weren't dragging our feet coming in and, at the wrong place in the quoting process where there's too many in there already. We can quote these things and we can turn around quotes for, I would say 80% of the signs, in the same day. And that helped us a lot. That turned the corner for volume for sure.
Yeah, faster quote time or time to quote, faster conversion rate. So they definitely go hand in hand. Very good. How about you, Don and Faye? Lessons learned.
Go ahead.
So I'd say one of the things that, and looking back, I wish we would have spent more time on the infrastructure, setting up the software, setting up programs. We really focused on sales, and what happens is you get busy and then you don't really have time to go back and create the infrastructure. So I think infrastructure would have been one of the things I wish we would have spent more time on. Anything to?
Well, I agree with Kelly that our quote process, I'd like to streamline and get even faster than it currently is, because I still think that's always going to be a holdup. How fast can you get them out? Because things get in the way, or things come up, or it gets pushed aside if you're not careful.
Very good. Don, how about you? Lessons learned, looking back in time.
I'm going to be totally opposite of Don and Faye. I'd say go get as much revenue as you possibly can get, and then make it work at that point in time. That's as much if you don't have revenue, a terrible thing happens, and that's nothing. So I know a lot of owners that spend a lot of time on the minutia of the business as opposed to actually going out and getting customers. We outsource everything that is not core to designing, making, or installing a sign. HR outsourced, payroll outsourced, IT outsourced, web development outsourced. I'm not going to spend my time doing that when I should be out there trying to get signs into people's hands. So I would say lessons learned is always focus on getting business in the door as opposed to the other minutia.
Very good. Thank you, Don. All right, let's go to our next participant, and I hope I say your name correctly. Is it Suhal or Suhail? If you can take yourself off mute and go ahead with the question.
I'm just I don't own anything. I just had a talk with Dan in the morning. So
Okay.
I'm kind of trying to get into the business actually. And yeah, so I just got invited like an hour back to just a part
Well,
of meetings. I'm just listening. I'm just here to listen for now.
no problem. I'm sure Dan gave you all the right answers, so you don't have any questions for these owners. Well, if one comes about, just know that you can ask the owners a question anytime you want to.
Yeah, I'm in touch with Dan. So let's see. I'm in around the Atlanta area. Let's see. How it goes. And yeah,
Okay, very good, very good.
I'm gonna
All right,
unmute myself now.
that sounds great.
Thanks,
Thank you for
thanks,
joining
thanks.
us. Okay. All right. Well, with a smaller group, we're going to go around the horn again. Chris Jackson, what's another question you have for the owners today? You guys got lots of airtime here.
Yeah, hi, thanks. Can you talk about how you found your location, your facility, your location, the building you're in, and maybe any history on your moves if you've made a move to a second or third location?
Great question. Let's start with Don first. I know he's not in his first building. So Don, how did it work for you finding your initial location and then since then?
Signworld helps you out significantly. Rich Aries on staff has helped me get my first building, rent my second building, and then purchase my third building. So, yeah, Signworld support is there for the real estate transaction part of it. I mean, obviously you go on LoopNet and stuff like that and look around your current territory. But when it came to actually doing the deal and everything like that, I relied on Rich Aries and his organization.
Very good. How about you, Kelly?
Sorry. Yeah, 100% Rich Aries and Signworld. That's how I got my space. It did take a little longer than we had thought. And I guess in retrospect, if there's one thing I wish maybe would have been a little bit different is I would have fought harder to stay out of a 5-year lease. It's nice to know what your payments are going to be. But when you get to that growth bend, in the curve where the rent that it's insignificant relative to what you're doing, I need the space and now I can't get out. It's hard because it's just difficult to move out until 5 years. I wish I would have had a 3, but other than that, everything went very smoothly and we love our space.
So get a 3-year lease if you can.
Yeah.
Very good. How about you, Don and Faye?
So we had very few options when we opened, and we used Rich heavily also, but it seems like in our area, there's not a lot of the commercial type space that we were needing. There's office buildings, but not with the ability to do manufacturing in it as well. Where, as Don mentioned earlier, 6 miles from the border, 6 miles from the ocean, and I think it's about 6 miles from the desert on the other side. And so our biggest competitors is Tijuana for signs. And so we'd lose a lot because they aren't going to cross the border from Mexico to buy signs from us. And coyotes aren't going to buy signs from us. And the fish don't buy signs from us. So location is critical. But in our area, we really just had, I think, 2 options at the time when we started. And that was it.
And we love where we are. But we do have that issue with being kind of pigeonholed down into the corner of the US, if you will. And so, yeah, we can't go east at all. And we can barely go south and west. So we go north a lot, so in hindsight, I wish I would have started further north.
And there is nothing in our district or our area that we can really move into. There again, that's minimal availability space. We can move closer to the border, which I don't know how well that'll help us out. And to be honest, we kind of like where we're at. And because of COVID, we survived COVID here, but the staying lean and mean has kind of helped us out, I think. So.
Absolutely. Dan, your thoughts?
In the long run of the business, I feel that location and where you are is an arbitrary thing to the success of your business. Because if you're doing the right things in marketing and networking, you're leveraging digital marketing and website advertising, you are networking within business communities, eventually word of mouth advertising in and around your circles is going to get your business to where you want it to be. I think location and where you locate your business is much more important in the first few years of the business because you are more reliant on what is around you as you build those networks and as you gain traction with your digital marketing. But again, in the long run, I think location is really an arbitrary thing because as you've heard these owners say, through their marketing, they are building and establishing customer relationships outside of their local market. Those customers are not walking into their physical facility, so where they locate doesn't matter. So it's just a matter of how do you want to market, and then how quickly can you accelerate that marketing. From a finding a location perspective, as you've heard from some of the owners, we do have a gentleman who's on our team and has been with us now for over 25 years. He's done over 1,000 leases and 100 or so purchase contracts for Signworld Owners to locate and lease as well as purchase facilities that they're in. So he's well versed in what we're looking for. He does help in all areas of site selection, from identifying real estate to negotiating lease terms and tenant improvements, to then also reviewing leases as time goes on to determine where are there changes and adjustments that can be made, as well as reviewing, when you're ready to move again and finding additional real estate. So there's a lot of assistance there with that. But again, I think location and where you're at in the long run of the business is really an arbitrary thing, given that you can market online and through any circles of influence that you have to be able to grow that market.
Very good. Thank you for sharing those thoughts, Dan. All right, I see another participant has joined us. Ram, if you can take yourself off of mute, tell the group where you're located, and go ahead with the question for the owners today.
1 second. Hello, can you hear me?
We can hear you. Go ahead with your question.
I just this is Ram. I'm from Chicago area, trying to understand different businesses. I'm working with Mark Thomas, who is helping me with the different options. So that is where I got connected with you guys. I want to learn how the Signworld business work. Sorry, I just joined a few minutes ago. I missed that. My other meeting was running over. So basically, I am a IT guy. I worked as a director. Recently, I have some time to explore. So that is where I want to see secondary business while looking for a new opportunity about my job. So
very good. Well, thank you for that introduction. Do you have a question that you would like to ask Signworld owners about themselves, their business, or the industry?
Yeah, I missed that introduction. If you can give me a little background and what are the how is the market look like in this area, Chicago area? Is this nothing to do with region or area? It can be a different ball game altogether. That is a good opportunity as well, right, to grow the business.
Okay, yeah, so let's kind of frame that a little bit. So owners, as you're thinking about your market, your opportunity, and the competition, not thinking about other Signworld owners, just the market and the opportunity in the industry, how would you portray that to someone considering the business? Don and Faye, let's start with you first.
So, Ram, we also worked with Mark when we were researching opportunities, and he introduced a couple other organizations to us. And one of the things that I discovered during the due diligence when I was in your shoes is there's two questions I started to ask, and that was, what's your exit strategy? And when you talk to some of the organizations, the exit strategy was, I'm not sure. The other question I asked was, how long did it take for you to get to your corporate income? And those two questions really made a difference for me to choose this industry, because when you speak with some of those other companies, they're not making a corporate income and they don't know how they're going to get there. And they're not sure how they're going to exit because they're not making enough money to save. So those are two things that helped us determine to go with Signworld. And the other thing was that the community is awesome. And as far as the business goes, there's so much business out there. It's harder to keep up with the quotes of managing the opportunities and then staying on top of it. So I think that this business being brick and mortar allows you to grow and develop without having to have multiple locations throughout in some cases, we work with companies that have, 5 or 6 franchises. And we don't have to do that. We can grow as much as we want in this location. So I think that the opportunity with this industry is huge in comparison to some other things that Mark introduced us to.
Oh,
Very
okay.
So
Good to know.
Yeah, so we're going to ask the other owners that are on the panel today too, because we've got 3 different operations here represented. So Kelly, you're the closest to Chicago. Anything that you can say about the industry, the market, the competition in the Midwest compared to other parts of the country? Your thoughts?
Yep. Sure. Yeah. There is more business, than we can ever capture for sure. And we do struggle sometimes to keep up and to basically decide who we want to allow to be our customers. That's how much business there is. And it is, you're in Chicago and we're very close. So you will have, we found that there's seasonality. I mean, January and February are harder. So you have to pivot, you have to figure out what you're going to do in those months. And we restructure our ad campaigns to try to drive indoor business for us. So we're fabbing and installing those in January, February, March, where no one really wants to be outside. There's ways to figure it out. It's a little different depending upon, of course, where you are. And that's why we had to deal with that. Which, again, worked out, quite well for us. Again, what I didn't go through someone helping me understand it, but I did look into some industries. And what I really liked about the model in the sign industry personally was a lot of the other ones that looked like you could get to those numbers. You had a heck of a lot of people that you had to deal with, employees and boots on, and it got to be so big that you can do a lot with a very talented small staff and partners in the industry where you can drive revenue numbers that, I mean, I didn't want to have 50 people that I'm chasing around trying to understand, what they're doing and where they're going. I wanted to be in the business and get into it. And this allowed me to do it. So.
Very good. Thank you, Kelly. Don?
I would echo there's more business and you can, as we say in the South, there's more business than you can shake your stick at for the most part. And Signworld gives you an opportunity. It's a different model. It's not a franchise model, right? So there's no royalties. There's no rules most of the time, except we're at the golf tournaments, right, Dan? Then there's some rules at that point in time. But basically what Signworld is doing is they're giving you a business in a box, right? You pay your fee. They give you the equipment, the training, the knowledge, and the know-how, and the access to the network of suppliers and the network of other owners. And what you do with it, it's totally up to you. You can build yourself a business that does just car wraps. You can do a business that just does ADA signs. You can be a generalist like us, and then you can be as big as you want to be. I mean, there's some Signworld owners that are $1 million who will never be bigger than $1 million because they're comfortable at $1 million. You'll find some Signworld owners that don't know when to stop, i.e. me. I have 2 sons in the business, and they want to continue to grow. So as long as they continue to want to grow, I'll be glad to help them grow the business from that standpoint. But this is not rocket science, and we're not saving the manatees here. It's simple. Design a sign, make a sign, install a sign. That's it. So pretty simple business.
Yeah, that's nice. Simple, nice way to put it together.
Hey, and the good news is I can't make a sign. I can't design a sign. I can't make a sign, and I can't install a sign, but I can sell the crap out of them. So that's all they want me to do.
Yep.
Very good. Dan, any thoughts to add there?
No, I think the owners answered it nicely. The only thing I would add is that just as you continue through your discovery process, you'll talk to a lot of owners and go through validation and have that opportunity to explore not just your local market, but the broader market that's out there. You'll see what the market opportunity is.
Very good. Thank you, Dan. Sherry, you want to go ahead and get the slideshow started in the background while we continue on with questions?
Yes, so I'll get the slideshows started. I have 3 of them. There's no audio to them, so we'll just continue with questions. So Jeannie, you can continue and I'll get that pulled up now.
Great. Thank you, Sherry. All right, let's go to Greg for our second question. Greg, go ahead and take yourself off mute.
Okay, first, again, thank you all for being so open with your answers. It's really, really terrific. And I almost don't know which question to ask next. But I guess Kelly was just talking recently about employees. So one of the questions I do have is if you could maybe briefly share, again, any lessons learned or your experience with the issues around, attracting the right talent, and when it doesn't go right, what the turnover has been like, and I'm guessing it may vary significantly, but I'm just trying to get some kind of a sense for the experience with regards to that. Hiring, attracting, maintaining, developing good people. It may be a question, but
No, it's a great question. Most of our owners come from a corporate world where they may have led teams of people, but employing them is different. So let's talk about that. Let's start with you first, Don. Talk about the employee side of the business, hiring, maintaining, keeping. What do you do? How do you find them? What kind of people are you looking for? Maybe you can just expand a little bit in those areas.
Employees suck. They really, no, I'm kidding. It's not that difficult to find good employees, and as far as finding good employees, I mean, our attrition rate, I think last year was like 18%. And most of that was people that we brought into positions and then flushed out because it didn't fit the corporate culture over here. So finding them's not that difficult. Keeping them, that's basically up to you as a company, right? It's because it's the culture you create and the benefits you provide and the pay that you provide that will either attract and retain people or drive them away. And so we're very keen on corporate culture and what we've created here. And we have 23 employees. Of the 23 employees, 16 are related. And that's related to each other. I'm talking about we have husbands and wives. We've got fathers and sons. We got brothers. We got all sorts of stuff across this organization. And quite frankly, if you don't build an organization where people want to go work at, they wouldn't be inviting their spouse or their brother or their son or their father to come work for you. So I'd say retention is up to you and the culture that you build within your own organization. I mean, it's not going to be money, and it's not going to be benefits, although we do offer good pay and good benefits. But it's going to be, do they want to come into work? That's the bottom line from my standpoint.
Very good. Kelly, let's go to you next. And if you can elaborate on how you found your first hire and the hiring process as well, that'd be great.
Yeah. I found my first employee who is still with me today. She is my production manager, kind of my right arm woman, if you will. And we found her actually through Indeed. I think she came in her Facebook. I'm not quite sure. I don't recall. But the first employee, I didn't know she had experience in the sign industry, but I leveraged. I think Dan, you interviewed her, and I think Terry. I had people that could interview these people for me. I didn't know anything about it. I was 30 years in corporate. I had no idea what exactly was a good sign person. And so that worked out really well. And again, she's still here, and hopefully she's here for the rest of her career. But then we started bringing in some folks and some installers, and staying in the sign industry, and we had some hits and misses. Frankly, it's kind of difficult because we were looking for skill sets versus character and good bones. And because we can train people with these things, I've learned now that I've been in here a few years. So you gotta go for the people that have that have good character, high moral character, people that you can trust. You just see it, when you interview them, you can feel it and question in that area, rather than one particular router that they used to work on that is interesting. So then so obviously I brought my son, as I told you guys, but then my next hire, she was a bartender, and she's turned out to be a fantastic project manager because she had really good qualities and good personal skills. And she was able to hit the ground running, and it's phenomenal right now. And so I guess you got to look in all kinds of places and don't just limit yourself to, X sign people. Frankly, we do a pretty decent job of keeping them. We don't offer benefits, you know, like Don yet, because we haven't been around long enough. But what we do, we try to make it fun. You know, we have like Wiener Wednesdays and, you know, certain things for ball games. And we each person gets to have a particular charity that's close to them or something that they really means a lot to them. And we support the charities. So you kind of bring them in as part of, you know, more than just a job. It's a bigger function. They want to feel like they have a home and they like coming into work, and you try to keep it interesting for them in that regard.
Very good. Thank you, Kelly. Don and Faye, what's your thoughts on the employee side of the business?
So when we hired our first employee, we followed the Signworld process 100%. We ran the ad where they told us to run the ad. We had a couple candidates. We interviewed them really just to get to know them. Then we had some Signworld people interview them, and from there we then sent our first guy, Ivan. We sent him to another Signworld business down the road, and he worked there for a day. And in that day, he was able to demonstrate his skills, and we were able to, you know, get some feedback from the other Signworld company. So we 100% followed the Signworld process, and it worked out for us. The first employee that you have, you're going to rely on heavily. Signworld will tell you that owners don't make signs, and that's mostly because they don't know how to. Right? So you hire somebody who does, and that person, you'll rely on them heavily. But then the next employee, you'll have more knowledge, you'll have more experience. And while we still had Terry interview our second employee, we didn't need to rely on Signworld as much. And to Kelly's point, you're higher character, you're trying to make sure you have a good fit. And the other thing too that you'll find in this industry is that there are areas that you can outsource, and you'll be referred to a lot of great people who take a lot of pride in their work, and you outsource it. So we've done that as well on installs and sometimes designs and things like that.
Very good. Thank you. Dan, your thoughts?
Yeah, there's no doubt, you know, hiring, I think in any business is the most difficult part of operating a business, because especially if you're coming new into an industry, you don't know what you're looking for, and you don't know what you're trying to retain other than good work ethic and great attitudes. So the talent side of it is always the hardest to assess. It gets easier as you go along, and you find, as you've heard through some of these owners, and you'll hear through validation, creative ways that owners go about developing their teams. They're not always looking for sign makers or those that have specific sign industry experience. Sometimes they're bartenders, sometimes they're customer service agents, sometimes they're coming from outside fields. So it's just a matter of how do you take those skill sets and adapt them into this new environment. But from an employee perspective, Signworld does help quite a bit in this process, whether it is establishing, creating, or utilizing job ads and guidance on where to place those ads, what you're looking for in those resumes. In the interview process, we want you to focus most of your efforts on interviewing them for their character and their work ethic, their personality. We will step in and we will interview them on their technical skills and capabilities, their business and industry knowledge, and just that ability to help you handle the internal side of it so that you can focus on growth, and really, you know, put your time towards the sales end of it. And we'll help you for as long as you need that assistance, whether it's employee number 1 or it's employee number 10. It's just a matter of what do you need, you know, that assistance on in determining whether or not that candidate can be viable. There's a lot of advice, you know, that we'll provide in those assessments to help you determine what value they can bring to your team, where perhaps their pay scale may be based on the capabilities that they have and where they may be able to take you. But in that hiring process, the decision is really always up to you. You bring in people in that you believe have the right personality and work ethic to support your brand and your customers the way that you want that to be handled. But as you've heard from some of the other owners, retaining employees beyond that is really all up to you. Like, what are you willing to do to provide a very different employment experience than what your competitors are in the marketplace today? And so that becomes one of those differentiators. Just as much as the customer experience is on the sales side, it's the employment experience as well that helps you retain those employees.
Very good. Thank you, Dan. All right, let's go to Ram again. Ram, do you have a second question for the owners today? If you can take yourself off of mute.
Um, so how is that, I know a lot of owners provide their insights on this, right? Um, how long does it take to establish the ground and uh, get to the break even, like the initial investment and whatnot, right? The rough timelines where you see and how much time you contribute on day-to-day basis. Maybe multiple questions, but feel free
That's a
to
loaded
take it.
question. No, that's good. It's good. So let's divide it up here. So let's ask them how long until they became cash positive, where the sales of the business were covering the expenses.
Mhm.
How long until they were back at a corporate level of income? And I'm trying to think what part 3 would be to those two questions. Also knowledge, because you're learning a lot about the business. When did you start feeling like you really understood what you're doing? Those are some couple different unique questions there. So Kelly, let's start with you first. How long till you're cash positive? How long until you got to a corporate level of income? And do you know what you're doing yet? Or are you still figuring it out on a daily basis?
Trying to figure it out. Yeah. So for your first question, I think it was between months 4 and 5, where we were covering our bills with the revenue generated by the sales. I think it was I can't remember, it's either 16 or 18 months before I was back to my corporate level of earnings. That I was when I left a couple of years before that. I guess. There was how much time do I put in? I've always kind of worked a crazy amount of hours, and there's always my motto has always been there's just if you just don't let the other guy outwork you, you're gonna win a lot. And so I put a lot of time in, but I enjoy it. I enjoy the business. I enjoy sales. I enjoy being out with people and doing those things. So for me, but in terms of knowing the business, it's going to take you a while, to really understand. You can certainly make money. You can certainly leverage people to ask questions of, and that's kind of how you learn too. There's a lot to it, but at the end of the day, I don't think it was Don kind of that mentioned. I mean, we build signs. We all get kind of good at building signs, and the differentiator is really the service that you provide to your customers. How do you make that unique? How do you make that experience something that's just that shows up in your 5-star Google ratings? Like, we had an awesome experience. It's not like you put up a great sign, because a lot of people can put up great signs. What was the experience like? So we kind of focused on that, trying to get that going. So
it's a great response. Love it. All right, Mr. Don Conklin, I know exactly what you're probably going to say at this question, so I'm going to let you go next.
1 month, 2 months, 2 years, and 2 years. So 2 months to break even, 2 years to get back to corporate salary levels, and 2 years of hell. So I tell people all the time that it's going to take you 2 years to establish yourself. And I say 2 years of hell because you don't know what you don't know. People say, and I say, I don't care if you're opening up a burger joint, a retail spot, or a sign company. You open up a new business, it'll be 2 years of hell. And then when you get through it, get to the other side, then all is good. Of course, I've run into Signworld owners at the convention after a year who laughed at me when I said it was going to be 2 years of hell. And they reached me at the convention and they say, "Are you sure it's only 2 years?" So, I'm sure Don and Kelly can kind of go ahead and relate to that. But yeah, I mean, it's you don't know what you don't know, and you're going to hire people that have that, and you fake it till you make it. And the answer is always yes. Can I do that? The answer is yes. And then you can find someone else that can do it for you. So.
Love it. Thank you, Don. Don and Faye, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so we started paying ourselves a few months after we started the business. I think it was probably 6 or 8 months. It was part of the plan. We put it right into the budget. And as far as corporate pay, we keep investing in the business. So we haven't really even paid ourselves for the corporate pay, just because we keep investing in business, whether it's equipment or people or whatever the case may be. And then as far as doing the business and knowing the business, we kind of go with the same feedback as Don Conklin, and that is, just say yes. And when we first started out, a customer called me up and said, "Do you guys sell digital displays?" And I'm like, "Absolutely. Tell me about your project." So we had probably a 30-minute conversation about what they're trying to do. And I asked questions and I hung up the phone and I called Dan. And I'm like, hey, Dan, who sells digital displays and what are they? So you're going to learn along the way and you're going to continue to learn. And here we are 5 years later, a project came up and I was like, oh, I got to learn again. So there's a lot to the business and a lot of different directions to go.
Very good. Thank you for sharing those thoughts. Dan Werner, anything to add to that?
Yeah, that's funny, Don, because actually you called me and then I called Don Conklin. No, I'm just kidding. So I'm going to take, I guess, a little bit different spin on this because I know everybody's always concerned about getting back to their corporate income. Okay, corporate income is only important in the corporate world. Why? Because your W-2 paycheck is the only thing you get from the company you work for. You leave with no equity, you leave with no value. If you leave or they kick you out, you leave with nothing. So your only value that you get is the W-2 paycheck that you collect. As a business owner, your goal and your target should not be to get to your corporate income or take that out of the business until you're done growing the company and you're at a point where you're ready to sort of stabilize. Because where your true maximum value is as a business owner is not in the profitability on a yearly basis. It's in the equity or asset value that you have when you sell the company. Because the more money you take out of your business, the more you pay in taxes. The more you focus on growing your company and you can create long-term asset value. Now, when you sell and retire, you're facing much less taxation in long-term capital gains taxes as opposed to paying income and payroll taxes. So I would say your target really should never be to get to your corporate income until you're ready to stop growing the company. But it doesn't mean that you're not going to take money out of the business. It's just a matter of how much do you actually need to take out. For most owners, you know, if they were to stop growing, they can generally hit where their corporate income was, you know, within 36 months of opening the doors. Obviously, everybody is coming from a very different field and what they were making, but it's a matter of whether or not you actually need to take that amount home or you want to take that amount home. And that creates a different result for each owner. My advice would be much like Don and Faye are doing and much like Don did, and I think Kelly is doing as well, is a lot of those profits that you have every year, you're reinvesting to accelerate growth to get to that next level. And eventually you'll take more money home because you have to, but the goal necessarily shouldn't be to get back to that corporate income as quickly as you would if you were back in the W-2 world.
Hey, Dan, I'll add to that. You know, I mean, net profitability is somewhere between 20 and 25%. Ours runs about 23 to 24%. So the question you really have is how much of that 23, 24% you're going to invest back in the business and how much you're going to take home, right? We did 5.7 million in revenue last year, so you can do quick math on that. I bought $750,000 worth of equipment at the end of last year. Very easily could have taken $750,000 and put it in my pocket, but we reinvested into the business because it's a long-term gain, right? I mean, at that point in time or as they say in Walmart, in Wall Street, how many yachts can you water ski behind? It's a matter of building the business and developing the business so it can exist and last past you, either to hand it off to your family, which is what I'm doing, or to sell it on the market. You know, right now I could sell this business for about $5.5 million if I wanted to. And then the boys would kill me and we'd never have any Thanksgiving dinners anymore. But besides that, you know, to Dan's point, you need to decide how much you're going to reinvest in the business and how much you're going to take out and reinvest in yourselves.
Very good. All right. So we got time for a few more questions. Chris Jackson, do you have another question that you'd like to ask the group today?
Yeah, sure. Can you talk about how much time is spent of your day or percentage wise maybe or on sales versus other business items? I'm just trying to get a gauge on time spent with sales. All business
right.
development.
Sounds like a plan. I'm gonna have Don take this one first, Don Conklin, because he loves to sell. Don, thinking back as a newer owner, not where you're at today, because I think that's all you do is sell once in a while, if I remember right, and then go on vacation.
Yeah, when I'm not on vacation, I'm selling. That's correct.
But thinking back to the beginning, how much time did you spend on business development, and what are your thoughts to Chris's question?
90% of the time. I mean, I went to 8 networking meetings a week. All I did was sell. I mean, as far as I've said it earlier today, if it had to do with something that was not getting business in the door, I was outsourcing it. Either outsource it to an IT company, a payroll person, or hire someone else to design the signs, to make the signs. I mean, I was in the business of getting business in the door. And right now, today, I only have two functions. One is to set the direction for the company, and the other is to take care of our long-term customers. 85% of our revenue is repeat customers. So it takes a lot to do the old managing those customers and making sure they're still being happy with the company at that point in time. But I mean, as an owner, you're the face of the company. You are the company. You can always find someone to make a sign. You can find someone to dig a hole. You can find someone to, run a bucket truck, but no one else can be the face of the company except for yourself and your spouse.
And Don, if you were to start your business today, do you think you'd still be doing 8 networking groups a week, or would you rely a little bit more on the internet? Because I know 12 years ago,
I would probably do 8 networking a week, because that's how you get yourself established in the local marketplace. Yeah, the internet marketing helps. It helps you get you out there as well, but you're not going to be getting stuff off the internet immediately, right? I mean, you got to have yourself established credentially in your local market before you reach out to other markets.
Very good. All right, let's go to Kelly next. Kelly, talk a little bit about starting this business. How many hours a week did you spend on the business development? And maybe you can talk a little bit about what a sales call or a sales conversation is really like with a customer in this industry.
Sure. So when I started, I was pretty much, the only person answering the phone, and I've got to say, 95% of all of my sales leads came in through my internet channel. So the phone rang, or the web form was filled in, and typically when the phone rings, you engage the customer, and we have nice templates that we took from Signworld that kind of allowed us to walk through that conversation, but also trying to get to the root of what the customer was actually asking for in an intelligent way, so you could respond to that and create a quote ultimately. So initially, all the time, I mean, a lot. If the phone rang, you answered it, and you get to the point now, coming up on 3 years, where I take all of the repeat, because I enjoy that for sure. I mean, because they kind of reach out for you because they know you, and a lot of that business, but also in the business development end, which is the part of what are you going to do now? What don't you want to do? What do you want to do? How do you want to move your business into those areas? So because now I've got someone else that, can handle the call volume and understands it well enough to, do a really good job. I'm fortunate enough to be able to try to figure out how we grow the business in ways other than we currently do. What kind of acquisitions, what kind of equipment, where do we want to go? Which is all part of obviously business development as well. So it has waned, and I'm in like 3 network groups. I'm in a chamber, I'm in a BNI, and in one other charitable kind of a board that I sit on. So I don't have nearly as many as Don, but I enjoy being out there too and engaging. It's just fun. It's therapy sometimes even. So not quite as much as Don's doing, but right now at 3 years in, I'm probably half of my time, I would say.
Kelly, I don't think I've ever heard a Signworld owner call a sales consultation call like therapy. So I'm going to have to call you on that one again.
So I don't do 8 networking groups now. I do 0. My networking groups are at the bar on the cruise ship, at the bar.
I'm at the bar a lot, so.
Yeah, so that's my networking meetings now. But to establish earlier, I did that. It is fun. If you don't have fun talking about your business to other people, then you're not in the right business.
All right, yeah.
There you go. That's the therapeutic side. I like it. All right, very good. Don and Faye, how about you?
So I would say the amount of time we spend on sales varies based on what's going on with the business. If we have large installs, we'll spend more time on that. But I would say I usually spend 60 to 90% of the time on sales. I prefer the sales side of the business. I've told people in the past, like, I like the kill. I like going and getting new business. Sometimes the reoccurring business is a yawn for me because there's no kill involved. So I don't even really care if they get their signs. I just want the sales process and the kill. So I like that part of it. I've learned though, I have to overcome that other stuff, and I have to make sure that I get their signs, and the referral business has just been growing year over year. So we get a lot more referral business now, and you start to weed out the leads that you don't want to work on. And that's what happens as you mature in the business, is you're like, that's not a great opportunity for us. It's a one and done, or it's too small, or it's a soccer mom. So it changes as the business grows.
Yeah, absolutely. Very good. Thank you for those responses. All right, I see a raised hand from one of our guests who didn't have a question earlier. Suhal, would you like to come off of mute and ask a question?
Yeah, so I did have a discussion with Dan like 2 hours back. That was like my only interaction about this business. So we had a discussion regarding franchisee model for the business or growing your own brand by partnering with you. So I want to ask your existing customer, the people who are running the show, the thing, that do you regret not taking a franchisee model route? Or are you happy now after so many years in business that you were actually able to grow, make your own brand? I
Yeah,
mean,
that's a really good question, because most industries, franchising is so common and consistent. This industry is very different. But let's ask the owners what their thoughts are. Don and Faye, do you regret starting Signology and creating your own brand in San Diego, and wish you would have gone a franchise option instead?
No,
yeah,
I,
this is yeah. So this
Go
is because
ahead.
it's in initial stages you actually have the doubts, right? That it would have been easier to go through the franchisee route. So
Right.
yeah, now you
Yep.
can answer, please.
I don't know if it would have been easier. I can't compare it, but I don't regret starting our own business with our own brand and our own name. We've got 45 5-star reviews, and people know us in the area. And as Don said earlier, we get a lot of repeat business and referral business because of who we are. So I can't compare it to, say, starting a postal annex or whatever that sets everything for you. I kind of like being our own independent individual business.
And she mentioned postal annex. We have a friend that has a postal annex, and when they hear that we don't have to pay any royalties, they're like, oh my goodness, that is so great, because if you're not having a good month, you still get to pay those royalties. And when you talk to business owners, and you'll meet a lot of franchises, those royalty fees every month they're due, or whatever they pay, right? So no, we don't have any regret at all. It's one of the things that lured us to this organization.
Okay, very good. How about you, Kelly?
Yeah, so when I started my journey trying to figure out, I was actually really close to signing up with a franchise, buying an existing one in our area here, and you talked price and went very, very close. And then fortunately, I found Signworld on the internet and started pursuing that option. I looked at fast signs as well, and what really turned me off of the franchise model was I went down, and I think they were in West Palm Beach. I think that's where Signworld headquarters were. And I went down for a discovery day, and what it felt like at the end of that experience that day, and I was leaving corporate, so I had a lot of shackles and constraints on me in corporate, which is one of the reasons I wanted to get out. I'm a bit of a control freak. I kind of want to do things, but I want guidance, but I don't want to be told what to do. And I felt I was being almost suffocated down there, like being very restricted in what I was going to do with my business. And that's the reason I didn't go. And looking back on it, the business I was going to buy was probably about 25% of the top line that I currently have 3 years in. And that business was like 8 years old in the same neighborhood. I mean, chuck a rock down the road and hit it. So to me, there was absolutely, I mean, and if you really want to be an entrepreneur, I feel like Signworld gives you that opportunity much more than a franchise does.
Very good. Thank you. All right, Don, I saw your hand raised when the question was first asked, so I'm saving you for last. What's your answer to that question?
Well, franchising works when there's a power of a brand, right? So you buy a McDonald's because people know McDonald's. You buy a Subway because people know Subway, right? In the sign industry, if you add up all the market share that Signorama, Fast Sign, Signs by Tomorrow, Alpha Graphics, and name any other chain out there. If you add them all up, they have less than 10% of the market. Okay. The sign industry is so fragmented that there is no power of brand anywhere, quite frankly. So, from that standpoint, the franchise model falls apart. So why would you do that? Secondly, if I was part of a franchise, I would have probably forked over $500,000 for no support to a franchisor with my business at this point in time. And quite frankly, I think my wife would rather us keep the $500,000 than give it to someone else for marketing in a space that doesn't really need marketing. So, I tell people this all the time, and Jack would say this: the franchise model is right for some people, right? But think about it this way: the franchise model is there if you want to be an extension of a corporate entity. This model is there if you want to be your own business person.
Very good. All good responses. Dan, anything to add to that?
Don took my answer. Franchise systems are great for some people who need a little extra hand-holding and they want that guided direction and the decisions effectively made for them. This is really more of a model for those that want to have that authority over their business and that control to be able to make decisions that allow them to achieve their goals as opposed to the goals set on them by somebody else. So, not to say that franchising is bad. It works for some. It doesn't work for others. Our owners tend to prefer to have that independence and autonomy.
Very good. All right. Well, with that, we're a few minutes past the hour, so I want to make sure we close out this session a little past time. So my apologies to our owners who had to stay a little bit over. But first and foremost, thank you all very much for taking the time out of your busy days, sharing your honest perspectives and feedback to our audience today. We really appreciate each of you and hope you have a wonderful Valentine's Day. To our participants, thank you for joining our session today. We appreciate your interest in learning more about us, and we look forward to those additional conversations that we'll have with you going forward to identify if this is the right business fit for you and your next chapters in life. So with that said, hope everybody has a great rest of your 14th of February, and thank you all for joining in today. Take care all. Bye-bye.